Hey guys, it's 5:47 a.m. on a frigid February morning in 1895, and you've just woken up in a 52-room mansion on Fifth Avenue. The silk sheets against your skin cost more than most Americans will see in a lifetime, and the Persian rug beneath your feet? Well, let's just say an entire village in Iran spent 3 years weaving it. Outside your window, New York City is stirring. Coal smoke already thick in the air, horse hooves clattering against cobblestones, and somewhere down below, the unwashed masses are trudging through slush to their 14-hour shifts. But not you. No, you're Cornelius Whitmore III, steel magnate, railroad baron, and professional keeper of ungodly amounts of money. Today, like every day, you'll face 1,000 temptations that could destroy everything you've built. Or rather, everything your daddy built, and you're desperately trying not to screw up. But before we dive into this delicious day of dodging financial ruin and moral bankruptcy, do me a favor. Smash that like button harder than a Pinkerton detective cracking skulls at a labor strike. Drop a comment telling me where you're watching from. And, hey, if you're not subscribed yet, what are you even doing with your life? This channel's free, unlike everything else in the Gilded Age. Now, dim the lights. The first thing you notice isn't the cold, though, Christ almighty, it's cold. It's the silence. See, when you're this rich, even sound itself bends to your will. Triple-paned windows imported from Bavaria keep out the cacophony of the city and the walls. They're stuffed with enough horsehair to muffle a revolution. Your valet, Jenkins, a man so British he practically bleeds tea, has been standing outside your door for exactly 17 minutes, waiting for the grandfather clock to strike 6 before he dares knock. That's the first protection, really. Routine. Unbreakable, military precision routine that keeps chaos at bay. Knock, knock, knock. Good morning, sir. The temperature stands at 12 degrees Fahrenheit. Your bath has been drawn at precisely 102 degrees, as you prefer. You grunt acknowledgement. Never too friendly with the help, that's rule number 1. And swing your legs out of bed. The floor is already warm because Jenkins lit the fireplace at 4:30 a.m., another invisible luxury that shields you from discomfort. Discomfort, you see, is where temptation breeds. When you're cold, hungry, or desperate, that's when you make stupid decisions. Like your cousin Theodore, who lost half his inheritance on a sure-thing rubber plantation in Brazil. The plantation turned out to be a swamp, and the only thing that grew there was malaria and regret. Your bathroom, and I use that term loosely because it's bigger than most people's entire homes, features running hot water, a relatively new innovation that only the top 1% can afford. The copper pipes groan and hiss like something out of Dante's Inferno, but the water that flows is pure luxury. As you sink into the clawfoot tub, imported from France at a cost that could feed a family of 5 for a decade, you contemplate the day ahead. The stock market opens at 10. You've got a meeting with J.P. Morgan at noon. That magnificent bastard wants to discuss consolidating the Northeastern Railroad lines. At 3, there's the matter of that union organizer who's been stirring up trouble at your Pittsburgh mill. But we'll deal with that later. Right now, it's about preparation, about armor. You see, being wealthy in 1895 isn't just about having money. It's about building an entire fortress around yourself to keep from losing it. Every single day, vultures circle. Con men with oil wells that don't exist, inventors with perpetual motion machines, relatives with sob stories, mistresses with blackmail potential, servants with sticky fingers, lawyers with flexible ethics, Jesus, the lawyers alone could bankrupt you if you're not careful. Jenkins appears with your breakfast tray. Not too much. That's another rule. The wealthy of this era have discovered that gluttony is for the nouveau riche, those crude oil barons from Pennsylvania who don't know a fish fork from a dessert spoon. No, you eat like a European aristocrat. Poached eggs from chickens raised on your country estate, toast points with imported marmalade, and exactly 3 strips of bacon from pigs that probably lived better than your factory workers. The coffee is Blue Mountain from Jamaica, so expensive that each sip costs what a seamstress makes in a day. The morning papers, sir, Jenkins says, laying out 6 different newspapers. Information is armor too. You need to know who's buying what, who's selling whom, who got caught with whose wife. That last one's particularly important, because adultery scandals can tank stock prices faster than you can say moral turpitude. The New York Times reports that Edison's electric company is expanding. Mental note. Buy more shares, but through your shell company in Delaware. Never let them see you coming. The Tribune mentions a fire at a competitor's factory in Chicago. You feel a slight twinge of, is it sympathy? No, it's opportunity. Their contracts will need to be filled by someone. Might as well be you. But here's where the first real temptation of the day creeps in. Right there on page 4 of the Herald. Miraculous new investment opportunity in silver mines. Your fingers actually twitch toward the article. Silver's been volatile lately, and volatility means opportunity, but it also means risk. This is where your second protection kicks in, the board of advisors. You don't make a single financial move without consulting your brain trust. 5 men who are paid obscene amounts to tell you no more often than yes. There's Patterson, your lawyer, who can find a loophole in the 10 Commandments. Richardson, your accountant, who treats every penny like it's his firstborn child. Vanderberg, your investment advisor, who's got connections in every major market from London to Hong Kong. Morrison, your political fixer, who ensures that senators stay bought. And, finally, Blackwood, let's call him your problem solver, a man who makes inconvenient issues disappear through methods you deliberately don't ask about. After breakfast, you dress. This is another form of protection, believe it or not. Your suits are made by the same tailor who dresses the Vanderbilts and Astors. The fabric is so fine it feels like wearing a cloud, but more importantly, it sends a message. I belong here. I'm one of you. Don't try to con me because I know all the same tricks you do. The morning ritual continues with your correspondence. 27 letters await your attention, each one screened by your secretary, Mr. Pemberton. A man so paranoid, he makes you look trusting. 12 are from charities wanting donations. These go into what you call the maybe pile, which is really the definitely not, but I'll string them along pile. 3 are from inventors. 1 claims to have created a machine that turns water into gasoline. That goes straight into the fire. Another has designs for a flying machine. That one, you actually pause on that one. The Wright brothers won't make their flight for another 8 years, but already, smart money is sniffing around aviation. You put it in the investigate further pile, but then there's the letter that makes your blood run cold. It's on expensive stationery, the kind only someone with serious money would use. The handwriting is feminine, elaborate, and familiar. Very familiar. My dearest Cornelius, it begins, and your stomach drops faster than railroad stock after a crash. It's from Vivian. beautiful, dangerous Vivian who you met at the opera last month and who you've been, well, let's say you've been practicing your French with her, if you know what I mean. The letter continues. I find myself in a delicate situation that requires your immediate attention and, dare I say, your generous assistance. This right here is why the truly wealthy build walls around their walls. It's not enough to lock your doors. You need to lock your life. Every relationship is a potential liability, every pleasure a possible trap. You've seen it happen to others. Just last year, William K. Vanderbilt's divorce made headlines when his wife Alva threatened to expose his affairs. The settlement? $10 million and several houses. $10 million. You burn Vivian's letter immediately. Then you write a note to Blackwood. The French tutoring sessions are concluded. Ensure a smooth transition. He'll know what that means. A generous but final payment, a stern warning about discretion, and if necessary. Well, Blackwood has ways of ensuring people understand that New York can be a dangerous city for those who talk too much. By 8 a.m., you're in your private study, a mahogany-paneled sanctuary that smells of leather, cigars, and old money. This is where the real work begins. Ledgers spread across your desk like battle plans, each one containing the financial DNA of your empire. The numbers are your soldiers, and you're the general, moving them across the battlefield of American capitalism. Your railroad holdings are up 3%. Good, but not great. The steel mills are producing at 87% capacity. Need to push that to 90% without triggering another strike. The real estate portfolio in Chicago is appreciating nicely, especially after that convenient fire cleared out the slums you'd been wanting to redevelop. Funny how that works. But maintaining this empire requires constant vigilance against temptation. Every day you're offered shortcuts, easy money, quick fixes. Just yesterday, a senator's aide suggested that for a mere $50,000, you could guarantee the passage of a bill that would triple your railroad subsidies. Tempting? Hell yes. But you've learned that politicians are like chamber pots. Useful when you need them, but they tend to overflow with shit if you're not careful. The morning sun is climbing higher now, casting long shadows across your study. Through the window, you can see Central Park, that rectangle of green that keeps the poor just far enough away from your doorstep. It's almost 9 a.m., time to head to Wall Street, where the real games begin. The carriage ride to Wall Street is its own form of psychological warfare. You're in your personal brougham, black lacquered exterior, burgundy velvet interior, and springs so sophisticated you barely feel the potholes that could swallow a small child. Your driver, O'Malley, is an Irish immigrant built like a brick shithouse who once killed a man with his bare hands for trying to rob your previous driver. Now, that's employee loyalty you can't buy, except you literally did, for $40 a month plus dental coverage, which in 1895 makes him practically aristocracy among servants. As you roll through the city, you see them. The masses, the unwashed, the desperate. They press against shop windows, their breath fogging the glass as they stare at things they'll never afford. A boy, maybe 8 years old, runs alongside your carriage with his hand out. "Please, sir, just a penny." You don't even look. Not because you're heartless. Well, not just because you're heartless, but because if you give 1 penny, suddenly you're the soft touch, the easy mark. Word spreads faster than typhoid in these streets. The financial district looms ahead, all marble and menace. This is where fortunes are made and lost before lunch, where men commit suicide by jumping from buildings that, ironically, they helped finance. The smell hits you first. Coal smoke mixed with horse manure, sweat, fear, and that peculiar aroma of money being printed at the Treasury building nearby. It's intoxicating and nauseating in equal measure. Your office building, because of course you own the entire building, stretches up a magnificent 12 stories. The doorman, Stevens, tips his hat so precisely it could be measured with a protractor. "Good morning, Mr. Whitmore. Mr. Morgan's representatives are already waiting in the conference room." Shit. Morgan's people are early, which means they're trying to establish dominance. It's like dogs pissing on territory, except these dogs wear $1,000 suits and can destroy entire industries with a telegram. You take the elevator, one of those newfangled Otis contraptions that terrifies most people, but you've learned to embrace because time is money, and stairs are for peasants. The operator, a nervous little man named Fitzgerald, knows to take you straight to the 10th floor without stopping, even if God himself is waiting on the 5th. That's another protection. Never break routine. Routine is predictability, and predictability is control. The conference room smells like Cuban cigars and Protestant disapproval. 3 of Morgan's men sit around your mahogany table, papers spread before them like tarot cards predicting financial futures. The lead weasel, attorney, is Reginald Ashford, a man so slippery he could sell water rights to Atlantis. "Gentlemen," you say, not bothering with pleasantries because pleasantries are where they slip the knife in. "I assume you're here to discuss the Baltimore and Ohio situation." "Indeed," Ashford replies, his smile sharp enough to cut glass. "Mr. Morgan believes a consolidation would benefit all parties involved." Translation: Morgan wants to swallow your railroad whole and shit out the bones. This is where the real protection comes in. Knowledge, leverage, and balls of solid brass. You see, 2 weeks ago, you had Blackwood dig into Morgan's recent activities. Turns out, the old bastard is over-leveraged on a copper mine deal in Montana. He needs this railroad consolidation to go through, or he'll have to liquidate assets at a loss. But he doesn't know you know. "I'm listening," you say, lighting a cigar with deliberate slowness. Every second you make them wait costs them money and anxiety. They present their offer. It's insulting. Not just regular insulting, but the kind of insulting that would start duels if we still did that sort of thing. They're offering 60 cents on the dollar for your railroad shares, wrapped up in enough legal language to choke a horse. "Gentlemen," you say, blowing smoke toward the ceiling, "I have a counter-proposal. 75 cents on the dollar, plus a seat on the board of the consolidated company, plus guaranteed shipping rates for my steel operations for the next decade." Ashford actually chokes on his own saliva. That's preposterous." "No," you reply, standing up because height is another form of dominance. "Preposterous is thinking I don't know about Montana." The color drains from their faces faster than beer at an Irish wake. See, in this world, information isn't just power, it's a weapon, and you've just fired a shot across their bow. We'll need to consult with Mr. Morgan," Ashford stammers. "You do that. You have until 3 o'clock. After that, I might just decide to partner with Harriman instead." E. H. Harriman, Morgan's biggest rival. Just mentioning his name is like invoking the devil at a baptism. After they leave, practically tripping over themselves, you allow yourself exactly 30 seconds of satisfaction. Then it's back to work, because temptation doesn't take coffee breaks. Your secretary, Pemberton, enters with a stack of contracts that need reviewing. Each one is a potential trap. Hidden clauses, ambiguous language, loopholes big enough to drive a locomotive through. This is why you pay Patterson, your lawyer, more than most companies pay their entire legal departments. He goes through each contract with the dedication of a medieval monk illuminating manuscripts, except instead of glorifying God, he's protecting your assets. "Sir," Pemberton says, his voice dropping to a whisper, "there's a situation in the lobby." A situation. In your world, that could mean anything from a labor organizer to a pregnant mistress to a federal investigator. You head to the window overlooking the lobby. There she is, Mrs. Astoria Vanderbilt herself, dressed in enough silk and diamonds to fund a small war. And she's crying. Actually crying in your lobby like some common shop girl. This is dangerous. The wife of one of your biggest rivals, in your building, in distress. It's either an opportunity or a trap, possibly both. Send her up, you tell Pemberton, who looks at you like you've just suggested inviting in the plague. And have Mrs. Henderson present as a chaperone. Mrs. Henderson is your secret weapon, a 60-year-old widow who serves as your moral alibi. Any meeting with a woman present can't be improper if Mrs. Henderson is there, clutching her pearls and looking disapproving. Astoria Vanderbilt sweeps into your office like a hurricane in a corset. Even crying, she's magnificent. The kind of beautiful that launches ships and ruins empires. "Cornelius," she gasps, "I need your help. William is going to divorce me." Your brain immediately starts calculating angles. William Vanderbilt divorcing his wife would cause a scandal that would rock society. Stock prices would shift. Alliances would crumble. There's opportunity here, but also danger. Nuclear levels of danger. "Mrs. Vanderbilt," you say formally, because first names are for people who aren't walking grenades. "I'm not sure how I could possibly—" "He's been having an affair with my own sister," she exclaims. And, oh, this is good. This is very good. I have proof. Letters. Photographs even. Photographs. In 1895, photographs of an affair are like atomic weapons, devastating, game-changing, and capable of destroying everything in their blast radius. "What do you want from me?" you ask, though you already know. "Protection," she says. "Financial protection. If I confront William, he'll ruin me. But if I had backing, if I had someone of your stature guaranteeing my security—" She's asking you to go to war with William Vanderbilt. That's like asking someone to box with God. Theoretically possible, but probably ending in annihilation. But those photographs, those could be worth more than gold if played right. "I'll need to see the proof," you say carefully. She produces an envelope from her purse. Inside are 3 photographs that would make a sailor blush and letters in William's distinctive handwriting that are descriptive, very descriptive. The kind of descriptive that would end marriages, partnerships, and possibly several political careers. "I'll consider it," you tell her. "Return tomorrow at the same time." After she leaves, trailing perfume and desperation, you sit back and think. This is the ultimate temptation, the chance to destroy a rival completely, but it's also a massive risk. Get involved in the Vanderbilt divorce and you're choosing sides in a civil war among the elite. Lunch arrives. Nothing fancy, just oysters from your private beds in Long Island, champagne from your personal reserve, and caviar from wherever caviar comes from. Russia? You don't actually care as long as it's expensive and exclusive. As you eat, Patterson arrives with disturbing news. The union situation in Pittsburgh has escalated. They're planning a strike. Strikes are like cancer. If you don't cut them out immediately, they spread. Last year, the Pullman strike nearly brought the entire country to its knees. Federal troops had to intervene. Blood in the streets, capital versus labor, the whole American experiment teetering on the edge. How many workers, you ask? About 3,000. 3,000 workers who could shut down your steel production, cost you millions and worse. Inspire other workers to strike. It's like dominoes made of dynamite. What are they demanding? 10-hour work days instead of 12, a raise from $1.50 to $2 a day, and Patterson pauses. Safety equipment. Safety equipment. The audacity. Next, they'll want health insurance and vacation days. Where does it end? This is another form of temptation, the temptation to simply crush them. You have the money to hire enough Pinkerton detectives to break any strike. You could have every organizer arrested on trumped-up charges. Hell, you could probably have them all shot and call it self-defense. But that's the crude way, the nouveau riche way. The smart way is to divide and conquer. Promote a few of the smartest workers to management. Not many, just enough to create hope. Give a small raise, 25 cents maybe, to the workers with families. Create company housing that's just slightly better than the slums they live in now, but make the rent just high enough that they can never save enough to leave. Offer them 11-hour days and $1.75, you tell Patterson. But only if they sign contracts promising not to unionize for 5 years. Anyone who refuses gets blacklisted from every mill from here to Chicago. That's devious, Patterson says, and you can't tell if he's impressed or disgusted. That's business. The clock strikes 1. Time moves differently when you're rich. Faster and slower simultaneously. Faster because every second represents potential profit or loss. Slower because you're not rushing to survive. You're maneuvering to dominate. The afternoon awaits, and with it, more temptations, more traps, more opportunities to either expand your empire or watch it crumble. Because that's the thing about being wealthy in the Gilded Age. You're never safe, never secure, never able to rest. The money doesn't protect you. It just makes you a bigger target. 2 o'clock in New York's financial district, and the air is thick with greed and cigar smoke. You're back in your office, feet up on your desk, a desk that cost more than most Americans will earn in their entire lives, carved from a single piece of mahogany that probably had its own ecosystem before it became furniture. The afternoon sun slants through your windows, turning dust motes into gold flakes, which is fitting because everything you touch and turns to money, or ruins, depending on your mood. Pemberton knocks and enters with that peculiar combination of urgency and terror that makes him such an effective secretary. "Sir, Senator McKinley is here for your 2:15. McKinley, that bought and paid for puppet who thinks he's going to be president next year. He's early, too, which means he wants something. Politicians are like prostitutes. They're always working an angle, except prostitutes are more honest about what they're selling. Send him in, you say, not bothering to stand. Making a senator wait is one thing. Standing for him is another. You need him to remember who holds the leash. McKinley enters, all false smiles and sweaty palms. He's got that look of a man who's about to ask for money but wants to pretend it's about principles. It's almost adorable, like watching a dog try to convince you it deserves steak instead of scraps. "Cornelius, my friend," he booms, as if volume could substitute for sincerity. "Senator," you reply, deliberately not calling him friend. "What brings you to my office? Don't tell me you need another contribution already. The $50,000 I gave you last month should have lasted at least until spring. He shifts uncomfortably. $50,000. Enough to buy a mansion or a senator, apparently. It's not about money. He lies, settling into the chair across from you. It's about the future of American industry. Oh, this should be good. When politicians talk about the future of American industry, they mean the future of their bank accounts. There's legislation coming up, he continues, about foreign steel tariffs. If it passes, imported steel would face a 40% tax. Now, that gets your attention. A 40% tariff would make your steel operations practically print money. Foreign competition would be priced out of the market. You could raise prices 20% and still be the cheapest option. The profits would be obscene. And, you prompt, because there's always an and with these parasites. And I need assurance that if this legislation passes, your mills will increase production, create jobs, make me look good for the election. How much, you ask, cutting through the bullshit like a hot knife through butter. Another $100,000 for campaign expenses. $100,000. You could buy a small town for that. Hell, you could buy a small country in Central America for that. But the tariffs would make you millions. This is the temptation of corruption, served on a silver platter by democracy itself. It's not even illegal. Campaign contributions are just free speech, according to the Supreme Court judges you helped appoint. But it's a devil's bargain. Pay now, profit later, and hope the whole house of cards doesn't collapse. 75,000, you counter, and I want guarantees. Written guarantees that the tariff will be at least 35%. I can't put that in writing, McKinley protests, sweat now visibly beading on his forehead. Then you can't have my money, you reply, lighting another cigar with deliberate casualness. Do you know what $75,000 means to me, Senator? It's what I spend on champagne for one party. But to you, it's your entire political future. So, guarantees or nothing. He caves, of course. They always do. Within 10 minutes, you have a carefully worded letter that legally means nothing but politically means everything. It's beautiful, really. Democracy in action, if your definition of democracy is the same as your definition of an auction. After McKinley leaves, slinking out like a whipped dog with a bone, you check the time. 2:45. Morgan's response should be coming soon. But first, there's another matter to attend to. Your personal physician, Dr. Hartwell, arrives for your weekly examination. This is another protection of the wealthy. Constant medical attention. While the poor die of treatable diseases, you have a doctor checking your pulse weekly, examining your urine. Yes, that's a thing now. And prescribing cocaine for your headaches and morphine for your back pain. Modern medicine in 1895 is basically socially acceptable drug dealing, but at least it's expensive drug dealing. Your blood pressure is elevated, Hartwell says after his examination. I'm a businessman in New York. If my blood pressure wasn't elevated, I'd be dead, you reply. I'm prescribing a tonic, mercury-based, very effective. Mercury. They're literally poisoning you to keep you healthy. But that's the thing about being wealthy. Even your poisons are premium quality. 3 o'clock arrives with the sound of the elevator. It's Ashford again, looking like he's aged 5 years in 5 hours. Good. Mr. Morgan accepts your terms, he says through gritted teeth, with one modification, 67 cents on the dollar, not 75. 70, you counter immediately. 68. 70, or I walk. There's a long pause. You can actually hear his teeth grinding. 70. Victory tastes like aged whiskey and broken enemies. You've just made approximately $12 million in pure profit from this deal. 12 million. That's generational wealth, the kind that ensures your great-great-grandchildren will be assholes too. But there's no time to celebrate because Blackwood has arrived with his report on the union situation. Blackwood is unique. He dresses like an undertaker, speaks like a professor, and has the moral flexibility of a circus contortionist. He's the kind of man who could convince a saint to sell his halo. The strike leader is one Michael O'Sullivan, he reports in his eerily calm voice. Irish immigrant, has a wife and 4 children. He's problematic. How problematic? He's intelligent, educated himself, reads Marx and Engels. He's been corresponding with union organizers in Chicago and Detroit. If he succeeds here, it could trigger a nationwide movement. A nationwide movement. The words hang in the air like a threat. This is beyond a simple strike now. This is about the entire system, the whole beautiful, brutal mechanism that keeps you on top and them on bottom. Options, you ask. Several. We could arrange for his arrest. I have connections in the police department who owe us favors. We could offer him a significant bribe to disappear, or... He pauses. We could make him management. What? Make him a floor supervisor, double his salary, give him a taste of power. Nothing corrupts a revolutionary faster than comfort. It's brilliant. Evil, but brilliant. Take their leader and make him one of you. It's like turning Jesus into a tax collector. Do it, you say. But if he refuses, then we go with option 4. You don't ask what option 4 is. Some things are better left unsaid, even in private. Plausible deniability is another form of protection. The afternoon is wearing on, and you have a 3:30 appointment at your club. The Metropolitan, of course. Not the Union Club, too many new money types, or the Knickerbocker. Too many Dutch descendants still bitter about losing New Amsterdam. The Metropolitan is where the real power brokers gather, where decisions that affect millions are made over brandy and backgammon. Your carriage takes you uptown, past the construction of what will become Carnegie Hall. Andrew Carnegie, that Scottish bastard who somehow convinced everyone he's a philanthropist while paying his workers starvation wages. The hypocrisy is almost admirable. The Metropolitan Club is a fortress of marble and mahogany, designed by Stanford White, before he gets shot by a jealous husband in 1906, but that's another story. The doorman doesn't even need to see your face. He recognizes your carriage, your walk, the specific way you ignore his existence while somehow acknowledging it. Inside, the air is thick with privilege. These aren't just wealthy men. These are the men who decide what wealth means. Railroad barons, steel magnates, banking moguls, and at least 3 Supreme Court justices who definitely aren't supposed to be here but are anyway, because laws are for poor people. You spot your usual table, the one by the window overlooking Central Park, where you can watch the peasants ice skating while you decide their futures. Already seated is Charles Rothschild, the banking heir who controls more money than some European nations. Cornelius, he greets you in that peculiar accent that's neither British nor American, but somehow both. I hear you've been making waves with Morgan. News travels fast in these circles. By tomorrow, every power broker from Boston to Philadelphia will know about your deal. Business is business, you reply. settling into the leather chair that molds to your body like it was born knowing your shape. Indeed. Speaking of business, I have a proposition. Here we go. Another temptation, another opportunity, another chance to either double your fortune or lose everything. There's a revolution brewing in Cuba, he says quietly. The Spanish are going to lose. When they do, sugar plantations will be available for aggressive acquisition. Cuba, sugar. The Spanish-American War won't officially start for another 3 years, but the smart money is already circling like vultures. This is inside information of the highest order, the kind that's either incredibly profitable or incredibly treasonous. How do you know, you ask? Let's just say I have friends in the State Department who are very interested in American expansion, and friends in the newspaper business who are very good at creating public opinion. William Randolph Hearst. He's talking about Hearst, who's practically inventing yellow journalism to sell papers and start wars. You furnish the pictures, I'll furnish the war, he'll tell his photographers in Cuba. The man's a genius or a monster, possibly both. What do you need from me? Capital, connections, and when the time comes, political pressure to ensure America intervenes. He's asking you to help start a war for profit. The moral implications are staggering. Thousands will die. But the financial implications, sugar is white gold. Control the sugar trade and you control everything from candy to alcohol production. I'll think about it, you say, which in this world means yes, but make me work for it. The conversation shifts to safer topics. Whose wife is sleeping with whose business partner? Which senator is about to be indicted for embezzlement? The usual gossip that passes for small talk among titans. But then something interesting happens. A young man, maybe 25, impeccably dressed but clearly nervous, approaches your table. This is unusual. The Metropolitan Club has strict rules about introductions. You don't just walk up to someone here unless you want to be permanently exiled from society. Mr. Whitmore, he says, his voice shaking slightly. My name is Theodore Roosevelt, Jr. Roosevelt. That name carries weight, though not as much as it will in a few years when this young man becomes president. Right now, he's just an ambitious politician with more principles than sense. Mr. Roosevelt, you acknowledge, not inviting him to sit. I wanted to speak with you about your labor practices, he says, and the entire room seems to freeze. The audacity, the absolute balls on this kid. He's actually confronting you about labor practices in the Metropolitan Club, surrounded by men who would sell their mothers for a good quarterly report. Is that so? You say, your voice dangerous. The conditions in your mills are unconscionable. 12-hour days, child labor, no safety equipment. All perfectly legal, you interrupt. Legal doesn't mean right, he shoots back, and you almost respect him for it. Almost. This is a different kind of temptation, the temptation to destroy someone just because you can. This upstart politician, this would-be reformer, this thorn in the side of progress, your definition of progress anyway. You could end his career with 3 phone calls. Hell, you could probably end his life with 1 conversation with Blackwood. But something stops you. Maybe it's the fear in his eyes fighting with determination. Maybe it's the knowledge that crushing him would make him a martyr. Or maybe, just maybe, it's the tiniest fragment of humanity that all your money hasn't managed to kill yet. Mr. Roosevelt, you say slowly, you're young, idealistic, I admire that. But if you continue this conversation, you'll never hold office higher than dog catcher. Walk away now, and perhaps one day we can do business." He stands there for a long moment, wrestling with himself. Then he nods stiffly and walks away. You've won this round, but something tells you you'll be hearing from Theodore Roosevelt again. 5 o'clock, and Manhattan is transforming. The workers are flooding out of factories and offices like rats from a sinking ship, heading home to their tenements and cold dinners. But for you, the evening is when the real game begins. This is when society shows its teeth, when the wealthy perform their elaborate dance of displaying wealth while pretending money doesn't matter. You're back in your mansion, and Jenkins is preparing you for tonight's main event. Dinner at the Astors, followed by the opera. These aren't entertainment. They're battlefields where alliances are formed, enemies are identified, and fortunes are won or lost over 7 courses and Wagner. "Your evening attire, sir," Jenkins says, presenting your tailcoat like a priest presenting the Holy Sacrament. The shirt is so white it could blind you. The studs are diamonds from South Africa, where some poor bastard probably died mining them. And the white bow tie is silk from China, where entire families work themselves to death so you can look good at dinner. As Jenkins helps you dress, because apparently rich people forget how buttons work, he briefs you on tonight's attendees. This is crucial intelligence. Knowing who sits where, who's feuding with whom, who's desperate for money, and who just found out their husband has syphilis can mean the difference between social triumph and disaster. The Astors have seated you next to Mrs. Margaret Pemberton Hayes, Jenkins informs you. Interesting. Margaret Pemberton Hayes is a widow, recently out of mourning, and sitting on a fortune her late husband made in gunpowder during the Civil War. The Astors are playing matchmaker, which means they want something. They always want something. And across from you will be Mr. Jay Gould's son, George. George Gould, that sniveling heir to the most hated fortune in America. His father was so despised that when he died, the New York Times basically said good riddance. But hatred doesn't make the money any less spendable. You check your pocket watch, a Patek Philippe that cost more than most people's houses. 5:45. Time to go, but first you stop by your safe. Not the obvious one behind the painting, that's for show, filled with fake bonds to satisfy burglars, but the real one, hidden in the floor beneath a Turkish rug. Inside is your real protection. Documents, contracts, deeds, blackmail material, evidence of affairs, recorded bribes, photographs that could end careers. Information is the ultimate currency, worth more than gold or silver. Gold can be stolen. Information can destroy the thief. You select a few choice documents to carry with you. Not obviously. They're sewn into the lining of your coat by a tailor who's paid extra to forget he did it. You never know when you might need to destroy someone over dessert. The carriage ride to the Astors is deliberately slow. Arriving early is desperate. Arriving late is rude. Arriving exactly on time is middle class. You arrive, fashionably late. 7 minutes past the hour. Precisely calculated to show you're important enough to be waited for, but not so important you're insulting. The Astor mansion makes yours look modest, which is saying something. Caroline Astor, the self-appointed Queen of New York society, has created a fortress of propriety, where she decides who matters and who doesn't. Her famous 400, the only people in New York who matter, according to her, is more exclusive than heaven and considerably less forgiving. "Mr. Whitmore," she greets you, her smile as warm as January in Siberia. "So glad you could join us." The dining room is a testament to excess. The table could seat 40, but tonight holds 20. The perfect number to ensure everyone can hear everyone else's conversations while pretending not to. The chandelier above, Venetian crystal, naturally, casts light that makes everyone look younger, richer, more beautiful. Even the shadows here are flattering. You're seated exactly where Jenkins predicted, between Margaret Pemberton Hayes and a German duchess who's visiting New York to find a rich American husband for her impoverished but titled son. The Europeans are getting desperate. Their aristocracy is broke, so they're selling titles to American new money like carnival prizes. $5 million, and suddenly your daughter is a duchess, and your grandchildren have titles older than America itself. Mr. Whitmore, Margaret says, her voice like honey over broken glass. I've heard so much about your recent successes. She means the Morgan deal. Jesus, word travels fast. By the time the soup course arrives, turtle soup, because of course it is, everyone at the table knows you've just made $12 million. Success is relative, Mrs. Pemberton Hayes, you reply, playing the game. I consider myself fortunate. Fortune favors the bold, she says, and there's something in her eyes that suggests she's not talking about money anymore. This is another temptation, wrapped in silk and perfume. Margaret isn't just wealthy, she's connected. Her late husband's gunpowder fortune came with military contracts, government connections, secrets about which politicians took bribes to look the other way, while defective ammunition was sold to the Union Army. Marrying her wouldn't just double your fortune, it would give you access to a whole new level of power. But marriage is dangerous for the wealthy. Your first wife, God rest her social climbing soul, died of pneumonia 3 years ago. It was actually laudanum addiction, but you paid the doctor to lie on the death certificate. Marriage means shared assets, potential heirs to challenge your will, someone with legal standing to betray you. The conversation at dinner is a masterclass in saying nothing while communicating everything. The German Duchess mentions her son is interested in American industry, which means he needs money. George Gould talks about expanding Western railroads, which means he's planning to crush competitors. Caroline Astor mentions that certain elements are trying to infiltrate society, which means some new money Jews or Catholics are getting too uppity for her taste. Then, between the fish course, Dover sole flown in from England on ice, and the meat course, beef from cattle that probably lived better than most Americans, George Gould leans across the table. I hear you had a visit from young Roosevelt today. Shit. How does he know that? The Metropolitan Club is supposed to be sacred, private, but nothing is private when this much money is involved. He's an idealist, you reply carefully. He'll learn. Or he'll be taught, George says, and there's something in his tone that makes your blood run cold. My father always said idealists are like weeds. If you don't pull them out by the roots, they spread. Is he threatening Roosevelt? Offering to handle him for you? Testing your resolve? With these people, conversation is like walking through a minefield where the mines are made of money and malice. The meat course arrives, lamb so tender you could cut it with a harsh look. The wine is a Chateau Lafite that costs more per bottle than a factory worker makes in a year. You drink it like it's water, because showing appreciation for expensive things is middle class. Speaking of idealists, Caroline Astor interjects, her voice cutting through conversation like a guillotine through a neck. I hear there's been trouble at your mills, Cornelius. Everyone stops eating. This is it. The test. Caroline Astor is seeing if the union problems have weakened your position, if you're still worthy of being at this table. A minor labor dispute, you say, dabbing your lips with a napkin that probably cost more than a week's wages. It's being resolved. How? Decisively? She asks. The ringleader has been offered a promotion. Amazing how quickly revolution turns to cooperation when comfort is involved. There's a moment of silence, then gentle laughter ripples around the table. You've passed the test. You're still one of them, still ruthless enough to belong. The conversation shifts to safer ground. Who's building a new cottage in Newport? These cottages have 40 rooms. Who's been caught with whose wife? Which politicians are for sale this season? It's like listening to demons discuss the weather in hell. After dinner, it's time for the opera. Not because anyone particularly enjoys opera, but because being seen at the opera is mandatory. Your box at the Metropolitan Opera House, not to be confused with the Academy of Music, where the old money used to go before you new money types built your own opera house just to spite them, is positioned perfectly. Not the most prominent, that would be gaudy, but visible from every important box. Tonight's performance is Wagner's Das Rheingold, which is fitting. It's literally about gods fighting over gold. The irony isn't lost on you as you watch fat Germans in horned helmets sing about the corruption of wealth while you sit in a box that cost $50,000 a year to maintain. Margaret Pemberton Hayes has maneuvered herself into your box, along with her companion, a mousy woman whose job is to make Margaret look more beautiful by comparison. This is another form of protection, surrounding yourself with people who make you look better. The music is so passionate, Margaret whispers, leaning close enough that you can smell her perfume. French, expensive, and probably containing whale ambergris or some other substance that required something beautiful to die. Wagner understood power, you reply, and what people will do for it. During intermission, the real show begins. Everyone pretends to get champagne while actually conducting business. You spot J.P. Morgan himself holding the court near the bar, surrounded by sycophants like a sun surrounded by planets that hope to not be consumed. Then you see her, Vivian, the French tutor you thought Blackwood had handled. She's on the arm of William K. Vanderbilt himself, draped in diamonds that you definitely didn't pay for. Your eyes meet across the crowded lobby. She smiles, raises her champagne glass in a mock toast, and mouths a single word. Soon. This is bad. If she's with Vanderbilt, if she's told him about your relationship, if she has letters, Christ, she could have letters. You were careful, but were you careful enough? This is the eternal vulnerability of the wealthy. The past never stays buried, and everyone you've ever wronged is waiting for their chance at revenge. The poor can reinvent themselves, disappear, start over. But you're too visible, too important, too rich to hide. You excuse yourself from Margaret and find a quiet corner where you can send a message. You always carry a small notebook and a silver pencil for moments like this. You write quickly. B. The French situation requires immediate attention. Full contingency. C.W. You hand it to one of the opera house attendants along with $100 bill. Deliver this to the address on the card immediately. Your life depends on your discretion. The attendant, probably making $30 a month, nearly faints at the money. He'll deliver it, and Blackwood will handle Vivian. How? You don't know and don't want to know. Maybe she'll be bought off. Maybe she'll be threatened. Maybe she'll have an accident. The less you know, the better you sleep. Back in your box, the opera continues. God's scheme, mortals suffer, gold corrupts everything it touches. It's like watching your life set to music, except with worse costumes. As the evening wears on, you feel the weight of it all. The constant vigilance, the endless threats, the temptations that never stop coming. Every conversation is a negotiation. Every relationship a transaction. Every moment a calculation of risk versus reward. But then the music swells, the lights dim, and for just a moment you allow yourself to feel something other than greed or fear. It doesn't last. It never does. But for one brief instant, you remember what it was like before the money, before the power, before you became this thing you are now. Then the moment passes, the lights come up, and you're back to being Cornelius Whitmore III, titan of industry, destroyer of unions, builder of empires. The evening isn't over. There's still the after-party at Delmonico's to navigate, but already you're tired. Not physically tired, but soul-tired if you still have a soul, which, at these prices, you probably don't. 11 o'clock at Delmonico's, and the real predators are coming out to play. If the Astor dinner was a chess match and the opera was a fencing tournament, then Delmonico's after midnight is a bare-knuckle brawl with champagne and caviar. The restaurant's private rooms upstairs are where New York's elite come to do things they'd never do in daylight. Gamble away fortunes, arrange mistresses, plan hostile takeovers, and occasionally, literally, divide up the country like a birthday cake. You're in the Scarlet Room. They're not subtle with the names here. Seated at a table where more American economic policy has been decided than in Congress. The air is thick with Cuban cigar smoke and French perfume, creating an atmosphere that's equal parts aphrodisiac and anesthetic. You need both to survive what's about to happen. Around the table, Diamond Jim Brady, who got his nickname from wearing so many diamonds he literally sparkles when he walks. Russell Sage, who's so cheap he counts the caviar eggs on his plate. And Stanford White, the architect who designs buildings during the day and ruins reputations at night. But the real power at this table is John D. Rockefeller, Jr., heir to the Standard Oil fortune, and possibly the only man in America richer than God. "Gentlemen," Rockefeller says, his voice as smooth as the oil that made him rich, "we have a situation. A situation. In this room, that could mean anything from a federal investigation to a revolution in South America that needs funding or preventing. The Sherman Antitrust Act," he continues, and everyone groans. That goddamn law passed 5 years ago that's supposed to prevent monopolies. It's like trying to prevent rain, annoying, ultimately futile, but occasionally requires an umbrella. They're coming after Standard Oil, Rockefeller says. And if they succeed there, they'll come after all of us. Steel, railroads, banking, everything. This is the ultimate temptation, and the ultimate threat rolled into one. Band together to fight the government, or let Rockefeller fall and hope his carcass satisfies the reformer's appetite. It's like being asked to save a drowning man when you're not sure he won't pull you under with him. What do you need, you ask, though you already know the answer. Money. It's always money. A war chest, $50 million to start, for legal fees, political contributions, and other expenses. Other expenses. That's code for bribes, blackmail, and the kind of influence that doesn't leave fingerprints. 50 million, Russell Sage squeaks, clutching his chest like Rockefeller just asked for his firstborn. That's insane. No, Rockefeller replies. Insane is letting them destroy everything we've built. Divide and conquer, gentlemen. That's their game. But if you unite, you're either unstoppable or all going to jail together. Possibly both. The negotiation that follows is like watching piranhas argue over a corpse. Everyone wants to contribute the least while gaining the most protection. You end up pledging $3 million, which hurts but not as much as losing everything to antitrust legislation would. But then Blackwood appears at your elbow, materialized from the shadows like a well-dressed nightmare. His presence here means something has gone either very right or catastrophically wrong. "A word, sir?" he whispers. You excuse yourself, following him to a private alcove. The sounds of the party fade to a distant hum, like hell's waiting room. "The French situation has been resolved," he says quietly. "Permanently. Permanently. That word hangs between you like a confession and a curse. However," he continues, "there's a complication. She had already sent copies of certain correspondence to William Vanderbilt. He's waiting in the Blue Room. He wants to discuss terms." Terms. Your blood turns to ice water. Vanderbilt has evidence of your affair with his new mistress. He owns you now, unless... What else, you ask, because Blackwood always has an ace up his sleeve. Mrs. Vanderbilt, Astoria. She provided those photographs you requested verification on. They're genuine. William Vanderbilt with his sister-in-law in compromising positions. Mutually assured destruction. You have dirt on him. He has dirt on you. It's perfect and terrible, like everything else in this golden cesspool of a city. You make your way to the Blue Room, where William Vanderbilt waits like a spider in a web made of money. He's drinking brandy that probably cost more than a house, looking perfectly calm for a man whose world could explode at any moment. "Cornelius," he says, not bothering to stand, "we have a problem." "We have an opportunity," you correct him, sitting down uninvited. "Power moves require power positions." "You've been foolish," he says. "Vivian was indiscreet." "As were you," you reply. "With your wife's sister, in your own house, during Easter dinner, from what I understand." His face doesn't change, but his knuckles whiten around his brandy snifter. It seems we're at an impasse, or an understanding. This is how the wealthy really protect themselves, not through virtue or restraint, but through mutual blackmail. Everyone has dirt on everyone else, creating a web of secrets that holds the whole rotten structure together. It's like a Mexican standoff where everyone's pointing guns at everyone else, so nobody can afford to shoot first. "What do you propose?" Vanderbilt asks. "Simple. We forget what we know. Your divorce proceeds quietly, with a generous settlement to Astoria that keeps her quiet. Vivian's disappearance is never investigated, and we both profit from the Cuban sugar situation Rothschild mentioned. Partners in profit and silence," he muses. "How perfectly American." You shake hands, two scorpions agreeing not to sting each other today. Back in the Scarlet Room, the party has deteriorated into what politely could be called entertainment. Chorus girls from the nearby theaters have arrived, their laughter bright and false as electric lights. One of them, a redhead with eyes like green glass, sidles up to you. "Buy a girl a drink, handsome," she purrs. This is another test, another temptation. Not the girl herself, she's just trying to make a living in a city that eats the poor alive, but what she represents: weakness, vulnerability, the same mistake you just made with Vivian, ready to be repeated. "My friend Mr. Brady would be delighted," you say, deflecting her toward Diamond Jim, who's already 3 sheets to the wind and won't remember anything tomorrow anyway. 1:30 a.m. now, and the real business begins. The gambling tables are brought out, illegal, of course, but the police commissioner is literally in the next room, so who's going to arrest anyone? The stakes aren't just high, they're atmospheric. You watch Russell Sage lose $40,000 on a single hand of cards, his face never changing. It's not about the money. Everyone here could lose $1 million and not miss it. It's about the game. The constant, endless game of who's winning and who's losing. You stick to poker, where reading people matters more than luck. Your opponents tonight include a judge who's definitely not supposed to be here, a congressman who's definitely not supposed to be betting federal appropriations money, and a newspaper publisher who's definitely not supposed to be this drunk. The cards are dealt. You get pocket aces, the best starting hand in poker, but also the most dangerous. They call them pocket rockets or bullets, and like real bullets, they can blow up in your face. The betting starts conservatively, $5,000, but by the third round, the pot has swollen to $200,000. The congressman folds, sweating like a whore in church. The judge stays in, probably because he knows something you don't. The publisher is so drunk he might not even know what cards he's holding. This is it, the pure distillation of wealth as weapon and shield. You can afford to lose this money. It won't change your life one bit. But losing would show weakness, and weakness in this crowd is blood in shark-infested water. You raise another $50,000. The judge folds immediately. He was bluffing. The publisher looks at his cards, looks at you, looks at his cards again, then does something unexpected. He laughs. You know what? He slurs. I don't even care anymore. My wife's sleeping with my editor, my newspaper's losing money, and I just found out I've got the syphilis. So, fuck it. I call your 50 and raise you everything I've got left. He pushes forward chips worth about $300,000. But, more than that, he pushes forward a deed. You lean in to read it. It's the deed to his newspaper, the New York Sentinel. A newspaper. In an age where information is power, owning a newspaper is like owning a cannon pointed at society. You could shape public opinion, destroy enemies with investigations, make or break political careers with editorials. I call, you say, pushing forward the chips. The cards are revealed. He has a full house, kings over tens. A great hand, almost unbeatable. You show your aces, but that's not enough by itself. You need another ace or a pair on the board. The dealer flips the river card. The last card, the one that decides everything. It's an ace. 4 aces. The publisher stares at the cards, then at you, then starts laughing. Horrible, broken laughter that sounds like a soul tearing in half. Of course, he says. Of course you win. That's what you people do, isn't it? You always win. He signs over the deed with a shaking hand, then stands up, surprisingly steady for a drunk man. You know what the funny thing is, Whitmore. You think you're protecting yourself from temptation, but you are the temptation. You're the devil, offering everyone everything they want for just the low, low price of their souls. He walks out, and 3 days later, you'll read about his suicide in your newly acquired newspaper. They'll call it a tragedy. You'll call it a business opportunity. It's 3 a.m. now, and the party is winding down into the kind of debauchery that would make Roman emperors blush. You decide it's time to leave, not out of morality, but because staying too late shows desperation or weakness. Blackwood is waiting with your carriage, ever the faithful shadow. As you ride through the empty streets of Manhattan, past the tenements where families are crammed 10 to a room, past the factories where children will be at work in 3 hours, past the churches where the poor pray for salvation that never comes, you realize something. You've spent an entire day protecting yourself from temptation by indulging in every temptation imaginable. Greed, corruption, blackmail, adultery, gambling, you've done it all, justified it all, profited from it all. The carriage passes a breadline where men are already gathering, hoping for work, for food, for any chance at survival. One of them, his face gaunt with hunger, looks directly at you through the carriage window. For a moment, your eyes meet. The apex predator and the bottom of the food chain, separated by glass and circumstance and an amount of money that could feed his family for 1,000 years. You look away first, because that's the ultimate protection against temptation, never looking too closely at what you've become, never questioning the system that keeps you on top, never wondering if maybe, just maybe, the publisher was right. You are the temptation. You are the corruption. You are the very thing you spend all your time and money protecting yourself from. And tomorrow you'll do it all over again. 4:30 a.m., and you're back in your mansion, but sleep is for the weak and the poor. Your mind is racing faster than a locomotive on straight tracks, calculating, plotting, planning tomorrow's conquests. The house is silent except for the ticking of clocks. 17 of them throughout the mansion, all synchronized, all counting down to what? Your death? Your downfall? Your next triumph. In your study, you pour yourself a brandy, your 7th of the night. But who's counting? The alcohol doesn't affect you anymore. Your liver has been pickled in the finest spirits money can buy. You stand at the window, looking out at the city that never sleeps because it's too busy being devoured. Jenkins appears because Jenkins always appears, like death or taxes, but more reliable than either. "Shall I prepare your sleeping draught, sir?" he asks. The sleeping draught, a cocktail of morphine, laudanum, and God knows what else that your doctor prescribes to help you forget what you've done during the day. "Not yet," you reply. "Send for Mr. Pemberton. I want to dictate some letters." It's 5 a.m., but Pemberton will come. They always come when you call, these servants, these employees, these human accessories to your life. He arrives within 20 minutes, hair hastily combed, clothes properly arranged despite the hour. The perfect secretary, which means perfectly broken to your will. "Take a letter," you say, beginning to pace. Motion helps you think, or maybe it just helps you avoid thinking too deeply. To Mr. Theodore Roosevelt, Jr. "Dear Sir, upon reflection of our brief encounter yesterday, I've decided to implement some reforms at my mills. 11-hour workdays will begin next month. Safety equipment will be investigated. I trust this addresses your concerns. However, should you continue your public crusade against industry, I will be forced to reveal certain information about your father's business dealings during his time as police commissioner. Specifically, his arrangements with certain houses of ill repute to operate without interference in exchange for considerations. Sincerely, etc." Pemberton's pen scratches across paper. He doesn't react to the blackmail. He's transcribed worse. Second letter, to the widow Pemberton Hayes. "Dear Margaret, I was enchanted by our conversation this evening. Perhaps we might discuss our mutual interests further. I propose dinner on Thursday, followed by whatever entertainment you deem appropriate. Yours in anticipation, etc. Marriage. Maybe that's the next move. Not for love. Love is for people who can't afford lawyers, but for the merging of empires, the breeding of dynasties, your children with her children, creating a bloodline of wealth so concentrated it could buy countries. Third letter, to the Board of Directors, New York Sentinel. Gentlemen, as of today, I am your new proprietor. Editorial policy will shift immediately. We will support business interests, oppose labor organization, and promote American expansion overseas. Any editor who objects will find himself not just unemployed, but unemployable from here to San Francisco. Progress demands sacrifice, etc. The letters continue. Threats dressed as offers, bribes disguised as investments, destruction wrapped in the language of construction. This is how you protect your wealth, by constantly attacking, because defense is just delayed defeat. 6 a.m. The grandfather clock chimes, and suddenly you feel it. The weight of everything. Not guilt exactly, because guilt requires the belief that you've done something wrong, and in your world there is no wrong, only profitable and unprofitable. But something else. Exhaustion, maybe. The bone-deep weariness of a man who's been running so long he's forgotten what he's running toward. You dismiss Pemberton and sink into your leather chair, the one that's molded to your body over years of sitting here, plotting here, slowly dying here. The brandy burns your throat, or maybe that's the acid of your own existence eating you from the inside. A memory surfaces, unbidden. You're 8 years old, your father taking you to the mills for the first time. The noise was deafening, the heat infernal. A boy, maybe your age, was working one of the machines. His hand got caught in the gears. The screaming. You can still hear the screaming. Your father put his hand on your shoulder and said, "This is the price of progress, son. Never forget, someone always pays." Someone always pays, but it's never you, is it? It's the boy in the machine, the publisher who killed himself, Vivian who's now permanently resolved, the workers dying of black lung in your mines, the children going blind in your textile mills. They pay so you can sit here in your leather chair, protecting yourself from temptations that pale in comparison to what you are. The sun is rising now, painting the sky the color of blood and gold, appropriate for a new day in the Gilded Age. In 3 hours, the stock market will open, and you'll make another $1 million. In 4 hours, Michael O'Sullivan will either accept your offer to become management or become a problem that needs solving. In 5 hours, you'll know if Roosevelt takes your bribe or if you need to destroy him. But right now, in this moment between night and day, between yesterday's sins and today's opportunities, you have a brief window of something almost like clarity. You walk to your safe, the real one, and pull out a photograph. It's you, 30 years ago, before the money, before the power. You're smiling, really smiling, not the calculated expression you wear now, but actual joy. You were poor then, working as a clerk in your father's first factory, making $15 a week and thinking you were rich. What happened to that boy? Did you kill him, or did he kill himself? Suicide by success. The front door chimes. Who the hell visits at 6:30 in the morning? Jenkins appears, looking unusually disturbed. "Sir, there's a situation." That word again. Situation. You follow him to the entrance hall where a small crowd is gathered. Your lawyer Patterson, looking like he hasn't slept. Blackwood, expressionless as always, and Theodore Roosevelt, Jr., accompanied by 2 men who are definitely federal marshals. "Mr. Whitmore," Roosevelt says, and his voice carries the weight of righteousness that only the young and foolish can muster. These men have a warrant. A warrant. The word hits you like a physical blow. You, arrested? Impossible. You own judges, senators, the entire New York political machine. On what charges? Patterson demands. Violation of the Sherman Antitrust Act, conspiracy to restrict trade, and... Roosevelt pauses, savoring this. Murder. Murder. Vivian. Somehow they know about Vivian. Additionally, Roosevelt continues, we've seized your newly acquired newspaper. The Sentinel will be publishing a special edition this morning detailing your crimes, your bribes, and your complete disregard for human life. Every politician you've bought, every competitor you've crushed, every worker who's died in your unsafe factories, it's all there. You look at Blackwood, expecting him to do something, to make this problem disappear like all the others. But he just stands there, and then, impossibly, he smiles. Mr. Roosevelt offered me a better deal, he says simply. Immunity in exchange for information. I've been documenting everything for years, Mr. Whitmore. Every murder you ordered, every bribe you paid, every crime you thought you'd buried. I even kept Vivian alive. She's in protective custody, ready to testify. Betrayal. The one temptation you never thought to protect yourself against because you believed you'd bought absolute loyalty. But loyalty, like everything else, has a price, and apparently Roosevelt paid it. You can't do this, you say, but your voice sounds hollow even to you. I own this city. I own the people who run this city. You owned them, Roosevelt corrects. But public opinion is turning. The people are tired of being crushed under your boot. And when the Sentinel publishes this morning, when they read about the children dying in your factories, the families destroyed by your greed, the corruption you've spread like a disease, well, even your bought judges won't be able to save you. The marshals step forward with shackles. Actual shackles, like you're some common criminal. The metal is cold against your wrists, heavier than you expected. You've spent your entire life building walls, fortifications, protection against every possible threat, except the one that came from inside your own house. As they lead you out, you pass a mirror in the entrance hall. The man looking back at you is pale, hollow-eyed, already a ghost. You protected yourself from every temptation except the biggest one, the temptation to believe you were untouchable. The street outside is filling with people. Word travels, fast in New York, especially word this juicy. Workers from your factories, servants from houses like yours, the poor, the desperate, the crushed. They're all here to watch you fall. Some are cheering, others are silent, perhaps remembering that even devils deserve dignity in defeat. As the marshals load you into the police wagon, a regular police wagon, not even a private carriage, you catch a glimpse of the sunrise fully breaking over the city. It's beautiful, actually. When was the last time you really looked at a sunrise without calculating how much money you could make before sunset? You know what's funny, you say to Roosevelt as the wagon door closes. You think you've won. You think you're the hero of this story. But you're just the next generation of the same disease. You'll become president one day. Oh, yes, I can see it in you. And you'll make the same compromises, the same deals, the same devil's bargains. You'll just dress them up in progressive language and pretend you're different. Roosevelt's face hardens. Maybe. But at least I'll try to be better. That's what I told myself once, you reply. When I was your age, full of fire and ideals. Then I learned that in America, you either eat or get eaten. There's no middle ground. The wagon starts moving, taking you away from your mansion, your empire, your carefully constructed life. Through the bars, you can see the city waking up, street vendors setting up their carts, children heading to the factories where they'll lose fingers and innocence, women walking to sweatshops where they'll sew until their eyes bleed. Nothing will really change. They'll arrest you, maybe even convict you, but the system will continue. Someone else will take your place. Maybe Roosevelt himself eventually. The machine of American capitalism will keep grinding, crushing the poor to create the rich, destroying lives to build fortunes. But for now, for this one morning, the people have their victory. They've seen a giant fall. They've witnessed proof that even the richest, most powerful man in New York can be brought down. As the wagon rattles toward the courthouse, you close your eyes and, for the first time in decades, you don't think about money or power or protection. You think about that 8-year-old boy watching another child's hand get mangled in a machine. You think about all the hands that have been mangled since, literally and figuratively, to build your fortune. Was it worth it? That's the question that will haunt you in whatever cell they put you in. You gained the whole world but lost your soul, and in the end you couldn't even keep the world. The Gilded Age continues, golden on the surface, rotten underneath. You were both its greatest success and its inevitable failure. Proof that all the money in the world can't protect you from the consequences of becoming the very evil you once feared. Somewhere in the city, church bells are ringing, calling the faithful to morning prayer. You haven't been to church in 20 years. God is bad for business. But now, heading to your judgment, you wonder if maybe you should have hedged that bet too. The wealthy protect themselves from everyday temptations by becoming the ultimate temptation themselves. But in the end, even they can't escape the final reckoning. The devil always collects his due. Always.